Well, hello, hello. I am back again to talk to another person from the creative space, and I have Roy Chow with me today. Roy is the uh,
Wait,
founder
pause,
and
pause.
partner.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
sorry, sorry, Matt. It's Ray, not Roy.
I'm sorry.
But it's okay. But
Yeah.
you know what's really funny though? You're the second person to say that to
As
me today. But today, right? But that person, just as you said that, I kid you not, they just emailed me. And I didn't correct them in the email, but it's
yeah.
it's just like, these little secrecies. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, so I was just hearing about lazy code is a thing that I don't really subscribe to, but I've was just being told about it. Like the simulation that is the world. Like it just
yeah,
makes shortcuts all the time. So
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
somebody's gonna mess up your pronunciation twice in one day because it's lazy code,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Roy,
yeah.
sorry.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna start over.
Yeah, we can leave it in.
No, we'll make sure we do it right.
Yeah.
Well, hello, hello. We're back again for another Other Ink Thursday, and I am joined in my call this week by Ray Cho. I'm going to start it over again. I'm going to say it first. It's Ray Chow.
That's it. Yeah.
Ray Chow. All right. Well, all right, all right. We're back again for another Other Ink Thursday, and I'm joined to this time by Ray Chow of MythWorks. Yeah, figure guns all the way around.
Figure it out.
It's already been a journey. We just started the recording. Uh, uh, Ray is the founder and a partner at MythWorks, and we're going to talk all about MythWorks and what MythWorks is up to, and what MythWorks has planned for the future. And so that's my only agenda, Ray. So hello, welcome to my show.
Hey, Matt, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. This is cool. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been interviewed.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, great. I love to get somebody that it it feels like a feather in my cap when I find somebody that's like, yes, please interview me because I haven't gotten to talk about myself enough yet. So great. I can't wait. So I
Yeah.
just for the viewers, the watchers, the listeners, I met Ray at Gamma Expo, but I knew MythWorks by reputation because we were talking and like, our booths were around the corner from each other, as happens at a convention, and you have a little bit of downtime, you go check out the other booths. And then, so I was down there talking to some people that I knew at MythWorks and met Ray, and then Ray came to my booth and you were talking to me about Skies of Fire, which is a comic book that you did, and I wanted to hear a little bit about that. But I'm like, oh, I remember that. I wanted to get that when it was on Kickstarter, and like, here's the person who did it. Amazing. And I don't even know. I don't remember how long ago it was. Because that was my excitement there. Let me start there. Like, what was that your first like foray into producing stuff, or was there, I mean, had you done other comics before? Like, is the nice collected edition like a 10-year long web comic that I totally missed out on in the
Yeah.
golden era of
Yeah.
web comics? Like, tell me about Skies of Fire.
Yeah. So I did it with my partner Vince, and it was Vince has the deep rooted passion for airships, and this was always his thing. Whenever we would like shoot the shit in film school, and that's sort of our background. Like we met in film school, and Vince was like on lights and like camera a lot, and I was usually like producing or assistant directing. But Vince and I were both like really big nerds, and we would talk about like Battlestar Galactica and like um, stuff like that
The
during
old one or the new one?
the new one, of course, the new one,
Okay.
Lord of the Rings, Battlestar Galactica. Just like we went to NYU, and there's like surprisingly few nerds in there. I mean, they're definitely there, but in the film school, it felt, everybody wanted to be like a Scorsese, right?
Mm.
And like me and Vince were kind of like, and our friend Greg, and there was like a handful of others, but just like oddball, like geeks and nerds. And the project basically, it was the first thing we had done basically outside of like school. But my background was in producing, so I kind of got the skills that like Kickstarter stuff from my like background in producing in film school. So learned how to budget stuff, learned how to do what's called like a prospectus to, that you're
Sure.
fundraising. And the prospectus was basically like the Kickstarter page,
It's
basically.
yeah,
Like
it's
it's
prospectus is like the grown-up version of a Kickstarter page. Like,
yeah. So like my background was in like producing and also like writing and Vince would shoot the shit about this. He wanted to do an airship story, and he like would not shut up about it. And like Vince would ask anyone and everyone at the most like crazy times of the day on the shoot on the way back, and he would immediately like go into the scene mode where he would describe like the epicness of like the planes coming in low and just zooming in and like being bombarded specks in the sky, and he was so passionate about this. And as it happens, after we graduate, we, kind of went our separate ways. He went to London and I went to LA. And basically, like, he was one of the few friends I was in correspondences with. We did another project actually. Our first project together actually is a TV pitch, a reality TV competition pitch called Warrior Within. And
all right.
Warrior Within was basically
It,
you take average Joes and you put them against like Spetsnaz in like airsoft or like paintball or something. But the catch is you don't tell the regular Joes they're playing Spetsnaz. You kind of like ambush them and then you say like, oh, but now you have like you can be trained to like beat them, and you go through like a series of exercises with it was a zany idea,
I
but
mean,
that
this
was
this this isn't a million miles away from like Ninja Warrior and stuff that has actually been on TV.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like
precisely.
I can see this. I can see this
And you could
happening.
do it so easily now too, is the thing. Like with drones and like body
Mm,
cameras, like that's all we really needed. Back in like 2011 when we were conceptualizing this thing, we were like, "Oh, that's gonna be very like, how are you gonna film this, right?"
yeah, you have to have
Um,
static cameras. I mean, I can totally see this. I mean, there, like you say, drone footage on the like you set up the course and you've got
right.
like basically full coverage of the course
You
from
do
the
the
air and yeah,
Yeah, and you have like the little maps, right? You tell the little narrative. It's like, oh, so now they get to like flank on both sides because they won the advantage in like the survival ship or whatever, right? And that would be the thing. Like the way you would even it up is like you would put the special ops like the Spetsnaz in the middle, right? And then have like them coming at them from two sides. Like like give them the geographic advantage. Man, I'm getting really in
I
there
mean
with this idea.
this. So we may have to come back to this. So how could you repackage this idea into a TTRPG now that that's we'll come back to that at the end. We'll come back to that or later
For
down.
sure.
So so you had this TV pitch and then you worked on Skies of Fire, which is a big graphic novel. Did one of you end up doing the art for? Did you get in talent to do the art for it, like writing, like all that stuff? Did you that I mean, I don't want to be like creative
Yeah.
is I don't want to use the word creative because it's all creative, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, your background is in the more production side, and the funding side and the organization side. That's all like part of the creative process as well.
Mhm.
But do you have like writing and art credits in the book too, or you just have like, no, I produced it? Because I don't.
I have writing credits on creator credits on the book too. So
Nice.
it's me and Vince. Vince's first name, I'm second name. That's kind of how you distinguish like whose kind of project it is within
Sure.
our stuff. And yeah, so the way it went about basically was actually so I have like in a weird way, I have like Vince to thank for everything. So my problem as a young artist, my like crippling like depression and paralysis was that I never ever finished anything,
Hmm.
right? So I did a film school student film called Greatest Cubist Ever about the world's or the the best Rubik's Cube solver at like PS 114 or something like that. And I like was never satisfied and never finished cutting that film,
Mm,
which is something that's very common in film schools and art schools, right? It's a thing that a lot of young creatives go through. At least I observed from my classmates. Like a lot of us were afraid to finish because oftentimes finishing meant failing because it wasn't as good as you thought it was going to be, right?
right.
So like there's this kind of
Right.
thing
Perfect is
going
the
on.
enemy of complete is one of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
phrases that you have to learn, I think.
Right, right. And you're young, you go to an art school and like it's you have that like invincible edge when like you're kind of going into it, right? But then you really don't know like your limits or your strengths really. Like very few do, I felt. Like I mean some did and some were incredibly talented, right? But like just most people were kind of like filling it out, but at the same time being in very creative environments where they were encouraged to create and express themselves. And sometimes it became like a very existential thing to finish these art projects, right? To do a final cut. And Vince was kind of the same way. He actually did a colors. I think he did finish this one, but it was called I Sisyphus. It was about a person writing like the same like bureaucratic code like day in and day out and like just over and over and being so mad that's what they're doing. And I think he did it as like a protest to like some thing they changed about the insurance or something, in film school. I mean, like film school was great. It was like kind of like La La Land too, though, because everyone gets like caught up in the idea of doing their art projects, right? So, so like all of that, I didn't finish like a senior film. I got like depression basically, and
Mm.
like I did not do like a senior thesis, and I felt like a failure coming out of film school, and then going into like the job market. It was like 2010. I graduated in New York, right? Like the bottom
Yeah,
just
yeah,
cratered
it's
out.
not a good time to be looking for a first job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like it just felt like that city like ate me up and chewed me out, just right.
Mm,
So like it kind of spit me back home. And like trying to figure it out. So I was doing kind of like really low end assistant, production assistant stuff in LA for some like really, really sketch figures. It was gnarly out there and for like $175 a week or something like that, something crazy, crazy low.
yeah.
And just hating life, and could not finish like writing a script, right? Like a full length, feature length, 120-page script. Um, and I was passing drafts back and forth between with Vince, basically corresponding with him on various projects, and he sent me a draft for Skies of Fire. And that was the second script he wrote. The first was Lorenzo il Magnifico. He wrote a script about Lorenzo the Magnificent in Florence. Uh, and I looked at, I was giving him feedback, and then I asked him if I could take a pass at it. And he was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I took a pass at the draft and did like, kind of wrote over his stuff. And then he looked at it and was like, yeah, that's pretty good. And then he like, wrote over my stuff. And that's sort of how we started collaborating creatively.
Yeah. Yeah.
And through that, like we finished like a draft, multiple drafts of the script. And that was like the first time that like I had like finished the script, right? And I used that momentum and I started writing my own scripts and I wrote like a script about like John Parsons, the like occultist rocket scientist in NASA and stuff like that. And that was like, I was taking like screenplay classes at UCLA, like extension and like working on that script and like, really just writing every day and just like 22, 23 years old, just writing things and making things, right? And it got to a point where we did Skies of Fire. We did like five, six, seven drafts of it, and we were like, okay, well, how do we make it, right? And I guess
Right.
that's like that was kind of my main thing because I guess that always like was how I thought about things or was trained to think about things. So like
Right.
if a
It
film.
it's like I don't know how many films, I don't know how many versions of a script is normal, but if you've written it and rewritten it 7 to 8 times, it's like you gotta that's enough times. Like now like you got to really do it,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
going to
yeah,
get more producible. Well, I mean, you might have to take out some
yeah,
special effects or
yeah.
whatever to make it more producible, but I mean, like you've
Well,
got the story, you know what it is. You
so
don't need to rewrite it.
yeah, yeah. Well, so talking about writing though, just like technique for a second, I think it's a matter of like you reach a point where you can't be objective about it anymore, right?
Mm,
Like you're just doing it
absolutely.
so much, but you can make it better. It does re like, but what you need is space away from it so you can like think and reconnect and contextualize things. But that's but basically, yeah, we did like 5, 6 drafts of like Skies of Fire, and we were like, yeah, this is pretty good. Looking back, it wasn't pretty good, right? It was probably pretty trash, but we were like, okay, what do we do with this? And we were familiar with Kickstarter from film school because Kickstarter was in like film students were early adapters of Kickstarter
Sure.
because of the nature of it, right? Like you're fundraising for your student film. I need 10 grand, 15 grand to do the student film. So that's how we were introduced to it like as seniors in 2009, I think, 2009, 2010. And then revisiting it by 2014 after, working as an assistant, doing some expat stuff in Taiwan, coming back, just trying to be creative, but not having any like real projects, like trying to kick this off the ground for the first time in like 2013. And we both put like, I think $300 down. Like we were like, all right, it's $300, 300, we have $600 for art now. And looking for an artist and being like, okay, like let's go find that and let's go see what we can do. And then as far as like like my role, I guess like what I would say is that like when in discussing the project with like Vince and rewriting it, just having a certain kind of vision for what it looks like, and looking for that. So I've told this story a million times, but the way we looked for artists, especially in the beginning, was we posted just job postings, right? We just said, hey, we want these many pieces of art, like this contract, this timeline, right, and for this rate. And we made sure it was really straightforward, um, and posted it up. And what we did though was I looked up like what the what the rates were, right? And like sort of like went the middle or high end basically, like
Sure.
$200 a page, $300 a page. And I think that really kind of makes a difference in um, kind of overall like quality, right? Like you're just trying to cast a wide net, and from there, we would get lots of portfolios. You have to review lots of portfolios, see what you like, see what you don't like. So kind of see what their weaknesses technically are as artists and stuff like that, right? And like kind of just brainstorm about it. And then um, we pick the best five out of like 200 or 300 applicants that we would get,
Man.
and we gave them $50 each, and we said, here's the first 10 pages of the script, here's the one pager with like the concept. um that's what we got, show us what you got, here's $50.
Right.
And what that did was, it showed us right away too who was like really into it, right? Because if they were into the idea, they would sketch a lot. They would be like, oh, here's this. Oh, well, check out this. And it tells you right away too if they're thinking in it the same way that you're thinking of it, right? Because it's like you want someone to like add to the stew and kind of be into it and be able
Yeah.
to like interpret it and make it better. And some people like it was more of a problem with Glow, but like kind of having a vision like of what you want the project to be, I think is like super important at the end of the day. Like just having that like kind of knowing what you want in the art and finding people that kind of share that vision, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's
so
that's definitely how I like to work as well. Like I've never, I think it's fascinating. You have kind of like a little almost pre-audition or whatever, where I've never done that, where I'm like, I'm going to give you some money up front for a small amount of work, and then we'll pick the the person that, you know, matches up well. I've never done that, but that's a fascinating wrinkle in it. And I guess if you're trying to look, I do talk about like casting a project, like
Yeah.
uh, like which is the artist? Like here's the of all the artists ever, like who has a similar look, a similar vibe, like, and then we have a meeting, and like, do you want to do this? And I am looking for those same kind of things where like somebody that's gonna, like you said, add to the stew. I like that as a phrase because you don't just want to have, I have produced one art. You want somebody that, you know, it is excited about, the kind of pitch that you're giving or whatever you're trying to
Hmm.
accomplish with the overall look
Yeah.
of the book.
Yeah.
Um,
Because that's really like that's the secret sauce, I think. It's like when you can get like a bunch of people passionate and like kind of going in the same direction and they're all talented, right? Like I really believe that like all my projects, like I'm probably the least talented of everyone I work with. I'm like I can't draw, I can't like I'm a mess, like I the only thing that I'm really good at is like really nothing. I can do a little bit of everything. Like I'm a quick learner, so I learn concepts really quickly, but I'm like terrible at grading or like scoring, right? Like I'm a consistent like 80% scorer. I'll make like two or three mistakes. Um, but the one thing is that I just like I can kind of figure out what needs to be done or like what the process is
yeah,
basically. And I'm really proud that like a lot of our artists like um like we gave them a lot of their first opportunities, and I'm really proud of that, and we're able to like work with them and see their art grow, and see them also like matriculate into like way cooler and way bigger studios than ours,
yeah,
right? So like,
yeah.
yeah,
We
so
at Wet Ink, we often say that like we will we're happy if any artist that we've worked with is now too busy to work with us. Like that is a good thing for them if we've been a part at all, one of the stones that they've used to go where they're going.
$100%, yeah.
That's great for them. So yeah, I totally get that same sort of, same side of a vibe. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, yeah, and
Uh
I'm gonna throw a plug in right now if you don't
sure.
mind. So one of the people that we collaborated with early on was our friend Brian Valenza, and he was the colorist on our project. And colorists are like insane, but don't get enough credit in the comic world that they deserve, and in any medium. Like color is man, like if you have a lot of if you're coloring the entire frame, then that's like a lot of your frame, right? Like how much line work can you really have if you're thinking about just like so it's a weird thing where they don't get recognized, but Brian, absolutely powerhouse of a talent. You talk about talented people, like this guy can fucking paint. Like he can just fucking paint, right? He's so fucking good at painting. And like Skies of Fire was one of the first comics that he worked on, and now he's like Marvel exclusive and doing like Invincible Iron Man and Miles Morales, right? Like
Right, right.
he's top
That's
talent,
right.
top talent.
That's right. To be at right. I mean, being at one of the big two is not like the only goal in comics, but it is sort of like a measure of like, you made it. That's a version of
Yeah,
making it for sure.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So he's doing his original comic, Bandits of Batavia, that's launching next week, actually. We're
All
helping him
right.
with the Kickstarter. Be on the lookout for that one. Yeah, my boy
All right.
Brian.
So it'll
Uh,
be it'll be live by the time this video is live.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and it's basically like Indonesian folklore Wolverine. It's like a bandit who like he gets eaten and like burned, but then he can't die anymore, and he's just on
all
a
right.
quest for vengeance.
There's sounds
Yeah.
cool. Sounds cool.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's been on my mind lately, but so we're really fortunate to work with like really talented people, right? Who have like gone on and done like really really awesome and big things. So I think that's like a big part of our success is just working with really really talented people.
So I want to ask you, we've talked for a while about the Skies of Fire and you're getting into the industry, but like
Yeah,
I would say, I mean, I'm looking at your page right now, like MythWorks, you've got a lot of RPG content now, and
yeah.
obviously we met at the gaming con and stuff like that. So how did you make the pivot then? Like after having Skies of Fire come out and like you've worked with all this talent and it's such a big thing, and then like why was it just the right project that came along next, or was it like a strategic decision to be like, no, 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 next is Wild Sea or next is Glow or whatever? Well, I don't even know which came next, but like,
Yeah,
what's
it's there. So it was all like like I like to say that my career is just kind of doing like what I love as a kid. Like I'm just that's all I'm doing,
as so many of
just
us, as so many of
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. So like, I freaking loved comics, right? I was an avid comics reader. I loved movies. I was like writing movies, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn this movie script that I wrote into a comic and make it work because I love comics. And you know, am into that. And then RPGs is the same way. Like I owe my love of stories, like so many others, to Dungeons and Dragons. A huge part of it was like DMing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was introduced to the concept in StarCraft, like Dungeons and Dragons map in StarCraft, where you're typing into the chat and like playing that way, right? So
All right,
the
all right.
idea of like role playing has always been just there basically. And
So can we make sure I understand here? So you were using like online StarCraft chat window to play D&D. Is that
yeah,
or
so it's a
or
map. So it's in StarCraft it's called use map settings, and then in Warcraft it's called custom games, right? And
yeah,
this is like the
yeah.
whole scene, the lineage where like so much of like game development has happened, like Tower Defense, Dota, League of Legends, but all like they had these weird little games sometimes you could program into it, right? You could program triggers. So through like basic use of triggers, you could basically develop stuff. And like I tried to make maps and I suck at it, right? I'm not an engineer. If I like try and do something myself, I like just suck in it it's crappy. But I like was trying, right? And like knew
Yeah.
of it and like that stuff. And anyway, so like Dungeons and Dragons is you like land on like you have little tokens of beacons, right? So you put a mutalisk into a beacon and it'll spawn a unit underneath a science observer. So the science observer is like your avatar as the DM. You're going around spawning units, and the players control like one character that levels up and can buy armor and stuff. So like, and you're typing into chat to like come up with a story, and you can have like neutral NPCs and stuff like that too. There's a way
Huh.
to do that. So like
This
you're just kind of DMing from the game.
I'm not a video game person really, so like this is fascinating to me that there's this D&D subculture within a game like that. That is
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't the only one. They had like what are called open role-playing maps, which were basically like you just picked a faction and you could spawn as many units as you want. And they just had a bunch of like unique units. And like you just played like little kingdoms in the realm. You just were like typing in and being like, hello, I am, like I am a scouting party from so and so. And yeah, people will be role-playing in those maps,
yeah.
man, in those games.
I mean that's there's a whole world there about like the different ways that I mean, I was talking to somebody else. I was thinking about this earlier that there's like because I don't know. There's too much to explain, but anyway, like the different ways that people play games and come into games, right? Like it's obviously I played around a table with some other people, and then we weren't in someone's basement. It was a basement, but it wasn't like a personal basement. It was like the bottom of a like college building, tech center type thing. But I did play D&D in a basement, but um,
I told my friends that if you didn't come to D&D, I would tell everybody in school that you played D&D. And that was
ha,
like my way of
that's
like,
that's
yeah,
powerful blackmail.
it's like come to the session. You know?
But my point is that like I learned to play like, that's sort of like many people learn to play from other people who learn to play around tables with other people. But there are lots of different ways to play, especially with the internet and stuff like that. So that's too big of a topic. We can't spend the whole time talking about that. But that
Yeah, yeah.
is that is a just further evidence of that there's other ways to play the game, other ways to get into the hobby
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So you had already done DMing and you liked that, and so I mean, what was the first RPG then that you connected, or one you want to talk about, because you've got several. I don't know if we don't we can't spend all day talking. So I mean, do you want to talk about Wild Sea? Because that seems like kind of the, if MythWorks has a current flagship, it seems like it's maybe the Wild Sea, and but maybe I mean, that's
Yeah.
from my end.
Okay. So
Maybe
so so
maybe
so
you
so
think of it
here's
different.
like the story goes, Skies of Fire. We did Skies of Fire. We worked with Joseph Vandal, who's a cartographer, a German cartographer. He said he showed us Blades in the Dark, and it was like beta 5 or 4, whether quick start 5 or 4, and he was like, yeah, read this. You can make a Skies of Fire RPG using this engine. And I had played D&D 3.5, right? I played 3.5 in high school, didn't play any in college with fourth, and then came back and played Pathfinder for like about a year and a half, like in 2013 or something. Had to stop playing Pathfinder because it was sucking up too much of my creative energy that I wanted to use to write
Right.
and create things. Red Blades in the Dark, and immediately was like, there's something different in this game. Like this this changes everything. Like this changes everything. And like I didn't understand, like I knew enough to understand that like, well, it turns into like a generative game, right? Like
Mhm.
the yes and kind of like, or the you did it but at a cost, the third, like, medium, like the mixed success, right?
Right.
So that like kind of blew my mind, and I would always come back to it in subsequent years and kind of pick away and try to understand it, but I couldn't find anybody to play with. Like
Mm.
I didn't know anybody playing Blades in the Dark in like LA in like 2015, 2016, and I did it, and I would try periodically and just not be able to like make it happen and try to understand it by hacking it, try to understand it by like kind of running it and like theoretically running it, but not really, mostly just
Yeah.
reading. And also like coming back to it every like, 6 months after not having read it or thought about it for a little bit and just like picking away and picking away. Um, Ended up doing like around COVID time, like 2020, like I was like, this is the year I'm gonna take it seriously, like I'm gonna really commit to this RPG thing, and got really into like studying that and learning blades, and I felt, and we designed so many games, like we did like I don't know, 15, 16 games, Vince and I, in 2021, 2020.
Wow.
And we did like Pro Patria Mori, which is a World War I zine that's like 9 that really simplified mechanics, grit and fear. So what you have. We did Love Balloon before that, which is like a GM-less kind of like take on Love Boat. It's like a sitcom generator, basically. It just gives you hijinks and scenarios for sitcoms. Um, and we're trying to ultimately hack Skies of Fire and do like a big book Skies of Fire presentation of that, right? And we did 6 versions of that. We did 6 full versions of that, like, full thing, like 80,000 words, whatever. Um, and like it hewed really close to the SRD and just was like just, as one does when you're trying to hack a Blades game. That's the thing. It's like Blades developers, it's this rabbit hole, right? You go into this rabbit hole because it's such a big system, and like you start like questioning everything, and like you just kind of it's there's a weird like masochistic streak with like early Blades hackers, I feel like, because you dedicate so much of your like life and energy to like learning this, to doing this thing, right? Just any RPG developer, and
Yeah. I mean, are you saying that kind of like you've got an SRD, so it's like, but I can change it and I can hack it. So then like that means that I have to atomize every piece of it and go, and sometimes you end up back where you started because it was good enough you shouldn't have changed anything, like
yeah,
is that kind of a, is that what you mean by kind of like
so
getting caught in that process?
So Blades is like a great system to learn because you learn like everything by studying Blades. Like it'll kind of like carry you across like so many different kind of aspects of game design, and it's such a beautiful like intricate machine to examine and learn from. But it'll drive you crazy studying it because there's so many freaking modules and they all seem like interlinked, and so it all seems like very important to this like purported like cycle of play thing that it's creating, right? And so, like hackers, especially the first go around, all they can do is like, well, I'm just gonna change some words around, right? I'm gonna change some words around, and then I'm gonna see what else I can change. And then they start by just like reskinning it and it takes them like one go around to reskin it, and then like once they reskin it, it's like only then usually I'm just now it's probably different with like how the hack scene is, but after only then do they start thinking like, well, can I remove things or like start
Mm.
really playing with the system in an interesting way. And so Wildsea, Felix, right? What was interesting about Felix was that he had designed it only with the core resolution in mind. Everything else was like uniquely branched off from other things. Um, and Wildsea, what struck me about Wildsea, like first and foremost, was how gorgeous it was and how like well realized. But I only noticed it because like in a post writing for like playtesters and RPG design or creation, like which was they had like a forum, a Reddit split, like a great
Mm.
migration. So there was a move of banners, and Felix was one of the first people in that new subreddit to be like, "Hi, I'm looking for playtesters." And he had like 36 replies, right? And like, when have you seen a playtest thread have 36 replies? Right?
Well, I only dabble in Rabbit or only dabble in Reddit, so I don't know if that's a
No,
lot. I'll take your word
it's
for it. I
it's a
don't know.
lot. It's a lot. It's very hard to get people to play test. Well, how do you play test your games?
We just have our like core group that we play with, right? And kind of subject it
Yeah,
to them. And
yeah,
we'll send it out to other groups and stuff like that too. But that's sort of like we're not we don't do a lot of like that kind of public broadcast solicitation. Uh,
right.
a lot of our games have um they're iterations on the same system, I guess. We came up with our own system. So like
Yep,
it's initially there was more playtesting than some of our more recent versions of it because
yep,
we're not changing the core stuff, but
yeah. So Felix did, right? That's how I found him ultimately, is that he made a Reddit post, and like I think testament to his sort of like kind of savvy too, right? Because it was a great looking quick start, like beautiful, black and white, really well laid out, and he did like a solid 60 pages. And the thing about Wild
that's
Seed
big
that
for a quick
was,
start.
yeah, very big. And it's a big game. It's a big game, right? It's a big game
Yeah.
that gives you a lot of character options and a lot of things to customize your game. And that part is a little bit more traditional, right? And like kind of what, for lack of a better description, like D&D players want, right? They want cool customization options. They want like cool magic spells, cool like armor, cool loot, cool things they can do, right? And
Yeah.
Wildsea, the Wild Words engine that Felix built allows you to have like a mix of that, but does it in a way that's like fictionally permissive, but also like a little bit of crunchy because of it's like your hit points or whatever. I saw that it had like this kind of sweet spot where it was different because he wasn't in the Blades in the Dark hack community. He had seen it late and kind of isolated his process, right?
Mm.
And he was in Japan developing it and looking at Pathfinder and missing all the PBTA stuff as well, and like being late to all that. And Sunless Sea he credits for like a lot of the inspiration, and like um it's a very kind of like cool and free form system, and there's a lot that's really great about the system, and I feel like I honestly feel like as people kind of study it in the same way, they'll find that too. There's like really a lot of novel systems. Like a lot of people say that it's just like Blades in the Dark. It's like, and the core resolution mechanic is, but it does so many things that just tickle the fancy, right? And like aspects are a good example. Like, there are abilities where you can become like a swarm of spiders and disperse, right? Like how cool is that?
That's
Like like
that's the
and
vibe of the wild. We haven't really talked about the vibe, the like look and the vibe of it or whatever. It's like I mean, I'll tell you what I think of it because like I haven't sat down and read the whole thing, but it's
yeah,
like, it's some sort of vision of the future or an alternate reality where most of the world is covered in forest and you're living on the surface treetops of the forest in these strange saw blade crafts, and it's like Waterworld except it's not covered in water. The
yeah,
world is covered in trees, and so
yeah,
everything
that's
is
a good pitch.
remnants of the previous civilization in a way. And you talk about dispersing into spiders, like everybody's got it's got the weirdest character classes and the weirdest sort of like creatures made of fungus, made of bees,
Yep.
whatever, like it's very nature, but also sort of very
Yeah.
steampunk at the
Yep.
same time.
So
It
so it's like fantasy, right? Like
Yeah,
it's fantasy, but it's a very strange fantasy. Like a
yeah.
strange, weird fantasy. Is sort of like one of the tags. Like weird fantasy and then post-apocalyptic. Yeah, so
Hmm.
all that stuff. But like there's also kind of like an eldritch horror element of it because it's the deep seas, right? So there are things beneath the waves, and as you go deeper, it is just like our sea, dark and pressure filled with terrors and that you dare not speak of.
Mm.
So I mean, it's a really good game. Felix made like an incredible game. I was fortunate enough to play test it and had a really amazing time. I played a mushroom chef. I was that Bendejo player who was like, the captain wants you to sail over there. And I was like, no, fuck that. I don't want to do it, right? And it was like me and another player, and we're like, yeah, let's go hijack that little like the emergency boat, right? And like
Yeah.
cut it off. So we did, and then just went on our merry way. And Felix was just like, great, and then played us through an incredible session that ended with us like chasing being chased by like Girl Scouts across like the rooftop thatches of like this settlement. Really fun, really fun. He was a great GM too. And I played it and I thought, wow, that was really fun, and didn't really think much of it. But then a couple of days later, a while later, I feel like it was a bit. He like messaged me and was like, hey, did you're Ray Chow, the creator of Glow. And I was like, yeah, I am. He's like, I back Glow. I love Glow. In fact, Glow like inspired part of the Wild Sea. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And he's like, yeah, like I did this language for it, right? So like there's, a large language element in the Wild Sea. Um, and so I was like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
I've
cool. And
I've
like
I've heard about this. It's like secret words, or they're like words of power, sort of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like there's a lot of crossover in like the genre, right? So like the language aspect, the apocalypse aspect. So Glow is a world where magic kind of like, led to the magical apocalypse, right? So like Magic Mad Max, techno
sure.
fantasy Mad Max. Which Furiosa, I just saw Furiosa last night. Have you seen Furiosa?
No, no, I no, I haven't seen it yet.
Thumbs up, viewers. All of you out there who have made it this far. Furiosa is excellent. George Miller is great, but he might be
Yeah.
terrible to work with. But
I don't know. Not worked with him. I don't know.
okay.
I it's it. I don't go to see very many movies.
Oh,
It's like a habit that I got out of for a long time ago. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's just kind of
yeah,
like I see them and I know people like them, but I'm sort of like, you know,
yeah.
it's a weird. It's not that weird, I guess, but like it's. I say that it happened right about when I aged out of the 18 to 35 demographic. Like I was just like, oh, there are no movies I want to see anymore, and so that I don't know. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I heard good things about. I've seen the old movies, the three Mad Maxes from a long time ago, and I heard
Oh,
Fury Road was good and Furiosa is good. I hear these things, I accept them as true,
yeah, yeah. Both of them were excellent, but weird thing, like Fury Road was a hit and lots of people saw, but Furiosa, like nobody's watching it. It's a historically bad like opening basically. It's like,
Hmm.
why does that stuff happen? It's so weird. Like quality is the
I,
same. It's,
yeah, I think I mean obviously not the media environment is so fractious these days. I don't I think I don't know. I don't know.
yeah,
I mean, I we should cut this out because I don't have any actual knowledge of anything, but
yeah, yeah,
I think my guess would be that it's the same. It's too soon, right? Like Fury Road, there had been like 20 years since the previous Mad Max movie, but then
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Furiosa is like, let's make another one. And people are like, we already saw that,
I think
So
we already saw that as a reaction a lot of people had, and I thought that too. And I
yeah,
wasn't thinking of watching it, but when I saw it, I was like, "Damn, this was just as good as the previous one! Holy shit!
right,
It's
right,
amazing! It's
I,
amazing! It's like this guy's great. He makes good shit, you know? Like
right,
it's yeah, it's anyway, so I think about stuff like that a lot, you know. I don't know if that this is of any relevant, but like that because I do feel like a lot of my job, you know, is kind of like marketing too, right? And just like kind
yeah.
of making, you know, making sure that our stuff can is seen and heard and whatnot.
Well,
So
right. I mean, that's we right. And working in RPGs, like it's sort of like it's kind of a mystery, right? Not even working in RPGs, working in indie RPGs, especially, it is kind of a
mhm,
mystery where it's like, people can do like a $1.2 million Kickstarter for 5e
mhm,
something or other, and they are successful, and you're like, I only wanted 15,000 for this like game where everyone can turn into spiders, like, and you're struggling to get it, but the it's not even like a flavor of the month, it's like a flavor of the decade, right? Like some things are
right.
so popular and they're out of all proportion to everything else, and so being associated with like the most popular thing, it is it's like it,
Yeah,
it feels, as somebody who doesn't publish 5e products, it feels like it's a license to print money if you're just like, oh, this is another 5e thing, because there's so many players and people are going to buy it, and even if they don't use it in their game, enough people will buy it that they want to do it. And I see how many
yeah,
products, and I mean, it's probably the smart decision. No shade on any of the companies that choose to publish 5e stuff. It's probably the right decision, but it's sort of it is how to market exactly the weird thing that you've got, not you, but like me too. Like, how to succeed at that is a mystery that continues to feel like I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing okay, but
right,
like
yeah,
it
yeah.
is sort of like, we haven't quote unquote made it yet. Maybe you never feel like you make it, right? I've talked to people who are further along in the running games, owning companies
Mhm.
kind of process, and they don't feel like they've quote unquote made it either. So maybe you never feel like you get there.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't feel like I'm there, right? Like MythWorks is growing really rapidly and has grown really rapidly, especially this past year, and these 2 years really. But it's crazy. It's like I'm on the rocket ship, and that was after some very lean years, you know, like very, very
Mm,
lean years where, I mean, when we, so, Wild Sea was, you know, we did Wild Sea in 2021. November 2021 was when we did the book, and you know, like it took us like 2.5 years to finish that book, and in that time, the economic realities of like making a printing a product and shipping it
oh yeah,
overseas was
that's like the worst time to have been producing a thing,
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah. So we basically like we thought we would have a certain amount. We spent everything we made and more like to make that book,
Hmm.
you know.
Well,
And
but it's a
yeah,
quality product at the end. I mean, it
thank
looks
you.
good. It's such a
Thanks.
physical presence.
Thanks. Yeah, like we, you know, it took a lot of it cost a lot to make that
Yeah,
book to and not just in money in you
sure.
know other things too for both Felix and I. But that's kind of interesting, or that's how like we bonded too, or how that relationship was able to like thrive too, right? Because we
Yeah.
both faced so much like adversity together. Um, so yeah, I mean like uh, it's I think at the end of the day, it's all about like collaboration and
Hmm.
community. I think it's always about that. And I try to keep in mind, or like, you know, I'm like, all right, like why do I want to do this? And like when I first started, it was because I wanted to see my stuff like made, right? Like just kind of into reality, and like I wanted it to be like recognized and stuff. And so, you know, I was doing that, and um now I kind of just want to do things because I want everybody to succeed that I work with,
Hmm.
right? And I want to be
Yeah.
able to provide for everybody and like take care of everybody and hopefully like just like you know make it a real thing for everyone because you know it's the economic realities of what we do are like it's not a big industry, and it's really really hard, and any sort of artistic pursuit is like that, and it's all sort of like a moonshot at the end of the day. What I found in my career in 10 years of doing this, that it's really just those who are too stubborn to quit,
Hmm.
right? That's all it is. Like you do it for a certain amount of time, and it's like, all right, well, like if you're too stubborn to quit, like, hey, you're still
You're
stuck
still doing
around.
it.
And
You're still doing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, that's, I mean, I, I mostly feel similarly, at least about the, I don't know if I'm stubborn or not. I think that's still up in the air. I don't know whether,
Hmm.
I think that's still, it's still to be determined how stubborn I am. But the part you said before about like the motivation being, because I think I had a similar route, right? Like my first work that I did under the Wet Ink Games name. My writing partner and I, like we had written for other people, and then we were like, no, let's write a game for us and put our name
Yeah,
on the cover. And and so we did, and we did that for our first few projects, and then now it is more like about what you said about like, oh, this art is amazing. Everyone needs to see this art. We will hire you and put this art in our book, and
yeah,
then we'll broadcast that because this is amazing, or you've got a really cool idea here. This is a great idea. Yes, here we will agree that we're going to pay you to write, a
yeah,
25,000 word version of this small thing that you've already worked on,
yeah,
and because it's such a good idea, it's so good. Here, take, you know, let us let us catapult your idea forward because it was
yeah.
so good. And
But
there is a
it takes a lot of talent to do that, and a lot of tenacity, like so like what you do is like, yeah, it's it's hard, right? Like I don't, because I feel like I guess it's hard to find, like I guess I prefer the word creator, right? I just
Mhm.
try to make it happen, whatever, like in whatever role I like need to fill in as.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I like that because it is, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like labels are sort of nebulous or whatever. I end up
yeah,
calling myself a publisher a lot of times to people at this
yeah,
point because I am that role where it's like it's not my name on the byline. My name's down at the bottom under like
yeah,
I made the system originally years ago or whatever,
yeah,
But the uh but yeah, creator is it's still creative work. It's still creative
yeah.
work. Um, so yeah, I like that.
The real ones know, the real ones know, like, and be like, oh yeah, yeah, like, because there are so many levels of like creativity, right? Too, like it's I don't know, it's just this like weird combustible like thing that you're just trying to like make into the world, right? And it's such a beautiful thing, but like it's so I don't know what we've always tried to do with MythWorks is do like worlds, right? Lore,
Hmm.
mythology. So that's always been sort of like our guiding principle. It's like if it hews to that, if you're trying to create something that is like in a sense like timeless, that like kind of like touches upon like archetypes or these underlying things or history or just all of this just sort of depth and breadth of scope, right? Then it fits like this epic, like expansive projects. That's like what we want to do. We want to do like Lord of the Rings, right? Dun, dun, with the horses and the sweeping
Yeah,
camera and the
yeah, yeah.
the charging and all the armor and like have everyone
Right.
dress up and like fight. Like
So
that's what we wanted to do.
somebody else has that license right now, but what can we do that's Lord of the Rings-esque, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh
Uh,
well, Uh, I haven't been watching the time. I don't know how long that we've been chatting here. I do want to make sure that you get a chance to tell us briefly, is there anything that you want to say that's coming next from MythWorks or what's going to be the big thing? As we're recording this, we're ahead of Origins 2024. So that in my brain is sort of the start of the con season. You got Origins and Gen Con. They're not back to back, but they're close together. So you are going to be at cons this year. You're going to
yeah.
have another release, or is the what's coming? in the near
Down the
future from
pipeline. Yeah,
MythWorks?
yeah, yeah. So down the pipeline, I am spending the majority of my days doing fulfillment and getting ready to fulfill three projects. So Wild Sea, Storm and Root is dropping. So is The Last Caravan. So is Slug Blaster. They're all going to be fulfilling this summer, basically. And so I've been calculating shipping rates for it's like 4 or 5 days, man.
It's
Uh,
that's what my business partner is for. I have to send emails to creators. My business partner does those calculations. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I dabble here and there, like I said, I'm a dabbler. I
sure.
so that's what's coming down the pipeline immediately. We're going to be crowdfunding for Pico this summer, which is Felix's new project. It's about exploring a world and solving mysteries as cute little bugs.
Okay,
You can
that's
build communities and ride little like large cats, right? And have like little pagodas on the cats.
all right.
Like, yeah. Um,
That
it's
that
very,
seems
very
in
cute.
keeping with your other oeuvre.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that one's coming down the pipeline. We have a couple of unannounced things that are
Okay.
really exciting, but probably too early
Yeah,
to
totally.
announce. But yeah, like as far as cons go, yeah, I'll be at Gen Con too, and Big Bad Con, and yeah,
Yeah, you're
you
because
should
you're. Go ahead.
have you been to Big Bad Con?
I haven't.
Oh,
I'm solidly Midwest, and a con on the West Coast seems too far away to go for a con.
oh, you gotta go,
But
man. San Fran's amazing. San Fran's amazing.
I
Gotta.
have been to San Francisco once upon a time many years ago. But yeah. I hear it's great. I know other people come from all over the country. I
Yeah,
know people on the East Coast who go to Big Bad Con, and the numbers, because I'm so spoiled. I live like 2 hours away from Indianapolis and 3.5 hours away from Columbus. So it's like I just drive to like the two of the bigger cons in North America. I just drive to
yeah,
them, and like I go there and I'm home the next day, and it's so like I'm spoiled in that respect, right? That I'm like, oh, that's
yeah.
that, I'm not going to go to all the way to California for it, but yeah, I hear it's great. I hear it's great. So I should.
Yeah, Matt, you should watch more movies and go visit San Francisco. It's
Right,
great.
right.
It's great.
I
Again,
I
it's a lot has changed, I'm sure, since the last time you've been.
well, right. I mean, I did we were there. It was my partner and I were there on honeymoon, so like
Ooh,
we did all the touristy things. We saw the Winchester Mansion, and we saw Alcatraz, and we drove up the hill so that we could drive down Lombardy Street. Like
sounds
it's
like you
all.
gotta bring your partner, Matt. Sounds like you gotta, just go on back to San Francisco.
That's right. That's right. Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah. Um,
yeah.
it's
But
it's
it's a really good show.
yeah.
All that notwithstanding, it's really cool. A lot of games, a lot of really cool games. Games on demand is wonderful there. A lot of really cool games on the docket as well. A chance to play with a lot of like creators as well as like a bunch of influencers, and they do a lot of stuff for like the community as well. They have like scholarship programs to attend, which is really cool of them to
Mhm, mhm.
do.
Yeah.
Um,
I
it's cool.
hear nothing but good things about it. It's just it feels too far away. But yeah, I hear nothing but good things. So
Yeah. Well, it's because yeah, it's good people, good stuff that they're doing.
right. Uh, all right. Well, and I think so. I think the only other thing that I want to ask you is like, where can people find MythWorks? Like, where is all these things, the stuff that is available? What's available? Where can they get it? Where can people get it?
Yes. You can go to myth.works to get all of our stuff, to keep updated, sign up for our mailing list, we also are should working like just like wedding, we're like distribution, man. That's the we're working on that aspect too. So
Yeah.
hopefully you can find our stuff in a friendly local gaming store soon. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So MythWorks for all the details. And Ray, thank you so much for your time today. Talk to me and sharing your story. You said you've one of the stories you told me you'd said it 1,000 times, but thank you for saying it one more time to for me and my viewers. So we will look for you at Gen Con, and just keep it on. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. And thank you for everyone who watched the video. What's your favorite myth that you'd like to see turned into a TTRPG? Put it in the comments. Thanks for watching.